The battlefield was still hours from sunrise when the engines began to echo across the frozen ground. Darkness pressed low over the countryside, thick and unmoving, broken only by the distant metallic rhythm of tracked vehicles advancing along a narrow road. In a shallow defensive position near a crossroads stood an 18-year-old infantryman, gripping an anti-tank launcher that suddenly felt heavier than it had during training. He had been in uniform only months. His experience consisted of drills, field exercises, and classroom diagrams explaining armor profiles and weak points. None of that training truly captured what it meant to wait in darkness for steel machines designed to crush defensive lines. The manuals explained penetration angles. They did not explain anticipation. Intelligence had warned of German armor pushing through the sector under cover of night. Previous defensive lines had been rolled back methodically. Panzers had broken through roadblocks and bypassed resistance with disciplined efficiency. The crossroads he now guarded was not symbolic. It was strategic. If the column passed through unchallenged, artillery positions behind him would be exposed. The contrast was brutal. On one side of the road, mechanized force, coordinated movement, hardened steel, experienced crews. On the other, an 18-year-old soldier in a frost-lined trench, supported by a thin infantry squad whose confidence rested entirely on surprise. Youth versus machinery, nerve versus mass. The cold amplified everything. Frost coated the hedgerows and stiffened fingers around metal grips. Breath rose in faint clouds that had to be controlled and quieted. The soldier shifted slightly in his position, careful not to disturb loose earth. Darkness concealed him, but it also concealed the enemy. Then the ground began to tremble. It was subtle at first, like distant thunder rolling under soil. Soon the mechanical growl of engines became unmistakable. The lead Panzer moved cautiously but confidently, turret shifting in slow arcs, scanning fields that appeared lifeless. From the tank commander's perspective, the road ahead likely seemed secure. He knew the first shot would define everything. If he fired too early, he would reveal his position without disabling the lead vehicle. If he waited too long, the column might spread out and reduce vulnerability. Surprise required patience measured in heartbeats. He replayed the diagrams in his mind. Side armor, thinner than frontal plating. Vulnerable seams beneath turret ring. Strike angle mattered. Distance mattered. Timing mattered more than bravery. This was not about heroics. It was about calculation. The engines grew louder, now close enough to rattle loose ice from branches. Headlights flickered briefly between tree trunks before cutting off. The Germans were cautious. That made the task harder. A careless advance would have been easier to punish. Behind him, his squad remained silent. No one spoke. They understood that the responsibility rested forward, in the trench closest to the road. Their rifles would support, their grenades would assist. But the first blow, the one that could halt the entire Columbia, belonged to him. As the lead tank approached the bend near the crossroads, its side armor briefly aligned with his position. It was the window he had calculated for, a narrow, fleeting opportunity between movement and awareness. In that moment, youth and war met directly. Fear was present, but it did not overwhelm him. It sharpened his focus instead. His breathing slowed, his hands steadied. He understood that hesitation now would cost far more than action. He tightened his grip and aligned the sights against the vulnerable plate. The battlefield seemed suspended between silence and eruption. Somewhere far behind him, artillery crews waited for delay. Somewhere ahead, armored crews advanced with practiced confidence. He squeezed the trigger. The blast shattered the frozen quiet, and in that instant, the impossible situation transformed into open defiance before dawn. By the time the first explosion ripped through the darkness, the outcome of that night had already been shaped by forces far larger than one soldier and one tank. The battlefield was not random. It was structured by doctrine, machine design, terrain, and logistics. Understanding what the 18-year-old faced requires understanding the system that placed him there. German armored doctrine emphasized momentum. Panzers were not meant to crawl cautiously through contested zones for long. They were designed to punch through, exploit weakness, and create psychological collapse ahead of infantry follow-up. Even late in the war, when resources were strained, German armored formations retained discipline and tactical cohesion. They advanced in coordinated groups, supporting one another with overlapping fields of fire. The Panzer itself symbolized mechanized confidence. Thick frontal armor protected it from most direct infantry fire. Its cannon could destroy fortified positions or anti-tank teams before they could reposition. Machine guns mounted coaxially and in the hull suppressed infantry attempting flanking maneuvers. Against unsupported riflemen, armor dominated almost automatically. Yet armor was never invincible. Its strength lay forward. Its weakness lay in angles, coordination, and environment. Side armor was thinner. Vision was limited to periscopes and narrow observation ports. Tanks required infantry support to protect against close ambushes. Without coordinated reconnaissance, even steel could be surprised. Anti-tank doctrine on the Allied side reflected those realities. Infantry units were trained not to engage tanks frontally unless no alternative existed. They were taught to exploit concealment, terrain, and surprise. Strike from the flank, aim for seams. Disable mobility first if destruction proved impossible. A halted tank became vulnerable to artillery and follow-up fire. The crossroads chosen for defense was not arbitrary. Narrow rural roads restricted maneuver space. Hedgerows and shallow embankments created partial concealment. A bend in the road forced vehicles to expose their sides momentarily before straightening formation again. Geography shaped opportunity. Still, destroying even one tank required composure under overwhelming pressure. Anti-tank weapons of the period demanded precise distance judgment. Too far, and penetration weakened. Too close, and detection risk increased. Ammunition was limited. Reloading under suppressive fire was slow and dangerous. Weather compounded the challenge. The cold stiffened equipment and numbed fingers. Frost altered traction on the road, potentially affecting tank speed, but also affecting infantry footing. Sound traveled differently through frozen air, sometimes masking approach until the last moment. The odds were not mathematical in a simple sense, but they were severe. A single infantryman against multiple armored vehicles meant that any miscalculation would invite immediate retaliation. Tanks could pivot turrets rapidly once alerted. A burst of machine gun fire could suppress a trench effectively. If infantry support accompanied the armor, flanking attempts would be even more perilous. But German units operating at night often reduced visibility to maintain movement. Limited lighting, caution against ambush, and compressed road space sometimes created hesitation within the column itself. That hesitation, if exploited, could magnify impact beyond a single destroyed vehicle. There was also the psychological element. Armored crews advancing through sectors previously cleared of resistance might carry a sense of dominance. Repeated success breeds expectation. Expectation lowers vigilance. A sudden explosion in the lead vehicle disrupts not only formation but confidence. For the 18-year-old in the trench, all these factors converged. He was not fighting abstract steel. He was confronting a system built on speed and intimidation. His advantage lay not in strength, but in asymmetry. He needed only one precise strike to interrupt the armored logic of the advance. 6 tanks represented more than 6 machines. They represented momentum, doctrine, and the assumption of superiority. To stop even one required precision. To stop multiple required not luck, but repetition under fire. The battlefield reality was clear. He stood at the intersection of vulnerability and opportunity. Steel possessed mass. Youth possessed initiative. And in the frozen hours before dawn, doctrine would collide with improvisation in ways neither side could fully predict. The first explosion did more than destroy a tank. It ruptured certainty. When the shaped charge struck the side armor of the lead Panzer, flame burst outward in a violent flash that lit the road in orange and white. For a fraction of a second, everything froze the advancing column, the infantry in the trench, even the night itself. Then the sound arrived. A concussive blast rolled across the frozen field, followed by the sharp crack of secondary detonations inside the armored hull. The lead vehicle lurched sideways, tracks grinding uselessly as smoke poured from ruptured seams. The road was blocked instantly. Behind it, the second tank halted abruptly, turret rotating in sharp, searching movements. Surprise had achieved its first objective. Disruption, but disruption was not victory. Machine gun fire erupted from the following vehicles, sweeping the hedgerows and ditches on either side of the road. Bullets tore into frost and dirt, spraying debris into the trench. The 18-year-old pressed low as rounds snapped overhead. He had only seconds before. The column adjusted fully to the threat. Reloaded. Training demanded calm repetition. Clear the spent tube. Position the next round. Re-establish aim under live fire. Those motions felt compressed and distorted by adrenaline. His hands moved automatically, guided by memory more than thought. Around him, his squad began firing controlled bursts toward the road to create additional confusion. The 2nd Panzer attempted to maneuver around the burning wreck, but the narrow bend and frozen roadside limited options. Its commander faced a choice: reverse and risk congestion, or push forward into uncertain ground. That hesitation, brief but real, gave the soldier another window. He shifted positions slightly along the embankment to avoid predictable targeting. Staying in the exact firing spot would invite direct cannon response. Movement meant exposure, but stagnation meant certain retaliation. Contact had transformed into calculation. Through smoke and flickering firelight, he caught a glimpse of exposed side plating on the 2nd tank. The vehicle's angle, forced by the blocked road, revealed a vulnerability not intended by its designers. He steadied the launcher again. This shot would be harder. The Germans were alert now. Turrets scanned actively. Tracer fire sliced through darkness in searching arcs. The element of pure surprise was gone. What remained was controlled aggression using the chaos created by the first strike before the column reorganized. He exhaled slowly and fired. The 2nd impact struck lower than the first, but with devastating effect. A burst of flame flared beneath the turret ring, followed by heavy smoke. The tank's movement halted abruptly. Its turret froze mid-rotation. 2 vehicles now obstructed the road. The psychological shift was immediate. What had been a confident armored advance became a stalled, compressed formation under unseen attack. Engines revved anxiously. Orders were shouted in German over open hatches. The night amplified confusion, yet the danger intensified as well. With 2 tanks disabled, the remaining vehicles had clearer lines of fire toward likely ambush positions. 1 turret aligned roughly toward the hedgerow where the shots had originated. A cannon discharged with a thunderous blast, sending an explosive round into the field beyond the trench. Earth and ice erupted skyward. The 18-year-old felt the shockwave punch through his chest. Dirt rained down across his helmet. The margin for error was shrinking. Contact was no longer about initial bravery. It was about sustained precision. Every destroyed tank increased risk. Every shot narrowed options. Ammunition was finite. Dawn was approaching. He recognized that remaining stationary would invite direct fire adjustment. He crawled laterally along the ditch, dragging the launcher carefully to avoid noise. His squad shifted with him, maintaining suppressive rifle fire to prevent infantry dismounts from the stalled vehicles. The battlefield had transformed in under 2 minutes. 2 Panzers burned, casting erratic light across frost-covered ground. Smoke drifted low, partially concealing the trench but also marking the area of engagement. The remaining tanks attempted to reposition, but the narrow road limited formation flexibility. The 3rd vehicle edged cautiously forward, attempting to angle its frontal armor toward the perceived threat. Frontal armor meant thicker protection, far harder to penetrate. If the tank completed its turn, the advantage would diminish sharply. Timing again became decisive. He waited for the moment when the tank's rotation exposed its flank during maneuver. It was a narrow slice of opportunity measured in seconds. Hesitation would allow the vehicle to square up defensively. He fired. The blast struck cleanly. The 3rd Panzer jolted violently, flames bursting from the side compartment. Smoke intensified, thick and suffocating. 3 armored vehicles now blocked the approach. The scale of what was happening began to register even amid chaos. This was no longer a single lucky ambush. It was a systematic dismantling of momentum. But contact was not finished. The remaining tanks adjusted faster now, spreading slightly within the confined space. Machine gun fire intensified toward every suspected position. Shrapnel from near misses peppered the ditch. The 18-year-old felt fear surge, briefly sharp and undeniable, but it was controlled by necessity. He understood that stopping now meant allowing the column to recover. Momentum, once regained, would sweep through the crossroads, and overrun the defensive line. Contact had evolved from ambush to endurance. The first engagement had proven that steel could burn. The next moments would determine whether that proof translated into decisive delay or fatal overexposure before dawn. 3 burning tanks transformed the narrow road into a corridor of fire and shadow. What had begun as surprise had now become confrontation. The German column, stunned but not destroyed, shifted from advance to retaliation. Engines roared louder as surviving crews sought angles of fire through smoke and flickering light. The battle was no longer defined by invisibility. It was defined by adaptation. The remaining Panzers did what armored doctrine required. They attempted to widen their field of engagement. One reversed slightly to gain distance, using the stalled vehicles as partial cover. Another rotated its turret deliberately toward the hedgerow, no longer sweeping blindly but firing in measured arcs. Suppressive machine gun bursts raked the ditch line, forcing the infantry squad to flatten themselves against frozen earth. The 18-year-old understood that the conditions had changed. Surprise had given him the first 3 kills. Now precision and mobility would decide whether the defense collapsed or held. He could not fire from the same position again. German gunners were triangulating flash signatures and blast echoes. He crawled further along the shallow embankment, dragging the launcher and remaining ammunition through frost-coated grass. Movement under fire required balance too slow, and artillery could adjust. Too fast, and noise might betray him. His squad shifted in coordination, rifles snapping in short, controlled bursts to discourage infantry from dismounting behind the stalled armor. Smoke from the burning Panzers thickened, drifting low across the road. Visibility became fragmented. For the German crews, the fire both illuminated and obscured. For the infantry in the ditch, it provided partial concealment. Chaos created opportunity if exploited quickly. A 4th Panzer attempted to pivot off the road and enter the adjacent field to bypass the wreckage. Its tracks churned into frozen soil, but traction faltered. The ground, hardened by night frost, broke unevenly underweight. The vehicle angled awkwardly, briefly exposing a section of side armor while struggling for maneuver. The soldier recognized the moment. He rose slightly from the ditch, braced the launcher against the embankment, and fired. The shape charge struck near the rear side panel. The impact did not ignite immediately, but thick smoke erupted from ventilation grills. The tank's engine whined unevenly before stalling. Mobility, the heart of armor doctrine, had been stripped away. 4 vehicles were now disabled or burning. The Germans responded with heavier force. A cannon blast detonated close enough to send a concussive shock through the trench. Frozen dirt collapsed along one edge of the ditch. Shrapnel tore through nearby hedges. The remaining operational tanks coordinated fire, their turrets now moving with focused aggression rather than confusion. The battle entered its most dangerous phase. The 18-year-old's ammunition supply was dwindling. Each remaining round represented not just firepower but survival. He assessed the situation rapidly. 2 operational tanks remained behind the burning barricade. If they coordinated effectively, they could either withdraw to regroup or concentrate fire to obliterate the infantry line. German crews began dismounting under cover of machine gun fire, attempting to establish perimeter security. Infantry support meant the ditch would soon become untenable. The engagement was escalating beyond isolated armored destruction. He shifted again, moving closer to a slight depression that offered deeper concealment. His squad adjusted, one soldier tossing a smoke grenade to thicken cover near the ditch's center. The mixture of tank smoke and infantry smoke blurred visibility further. The 5th Panzer edged forward cautiously, attempting to clear a firing lane past the burning wrecks. Its turret was angled forward, scanning deeper into the defensive line. For a brief second, its side became visible through swirling smoke. Fire. The round struck cleanly, and this time the reaction was immediate. Flames burst from the turret base, followed by a secondary detonation that rocked the vehicle violently. The tank halted at an angle, half-turned, blocking maneuver space completely. 5 Panzers were now out of action. The final operational tank faced a transformed battlefield. What had been a confident armored thrust was now a graveyard of steel and fire. Yet desperation can drive aggression. The last vehicle unleashed sustained cannon and machine gun fire toward the trench, attempting to neutralize the ambush point decisively. The 18-year-old felt the limits closing in. Ammunition. 1 round left. Dawn. Minutes away. Infantry dismounts. increasing. The enemy would either withdraw or commit fully in the next moments. He waited for the final tank to adjust position for clearer fire. As it shifted, its side armor rotated briefly into view while clearing debris. The window was narrow, smaller than the previous ones, and the smoke was thinning as wind shifted. He steadied himself one final time. The launcher roared. The shaped charge struck just below the turret ring. For a split second, nothing happened. Then a violent, internal blast erupted upward through the turret hatch. Flames engulfed the upper structure. The vehicle lurched and went still. 6 Panzers now burned along the frozen road. Silence followed, broken only by crackling fire and distant shouting from surviving German infantry. Withdrawing into darkness, the armored momentum had not merely been slowed, it had been shattered. But survival was not yet guaranteed. The soldier lowered the empty launcher. His hands trembled now, not from cold, but from release of tension. Around him, his squad remained alert, scanning for renewed attack. Smoke drifted east as the horizon began to lighten faintly. Escalation had reached its peak. Adaptation had met counter-adaptation and prevailed for now. Before dawn, youth and calculation had dismantled armored mass. Yet the battlefield would soon reveal whether this stand had merely delayed destruction or permanently altered the course of the advancing column. The fires from 6 burning Panzers lit the countryside in violent orange against a sky just beginning to pale. What had been darkness was now a flickering battlefield illuminated by wreckage. The 18-year-old remained in the ditch, empty launcher resting beside him, ears ringing from repeated blasts. The armored column had been shattered, but the engagement was not yet finished. German infantry, dismounted during the chaos, scattered into the surrounding fields and tree lines. Some attempted to drag wounded crewmen from flaming holes. Others sought firing positions along hedgerows, probing for the source of the ambush. The tank threat had been neutralized. The infantry threat had not. The squad leader signaled a repositioning. With the armored spear destroyed, the objective shifted from annihilation to consolidation. They had bought time. Now they had to survive long enough for reinforcements and artillery coordination to stabilize the sector. Dawn would soon erase concealment completely. The first artillery rounds from behind their line began to land deeper along the road, targeting possible regrouping points. The delay created by the ambush had given gunners precious minutes to calculate new coordinates. Explosions echoed beyond the crossroads, discouraging German infantry from forming organized counterattacks. The 18-year-old felt exhaustion creep into his limbs. Adrenaline that had sustained precise action began to ebb. He had not counted shots consciously during the fight. Only now did he realize the final round had been his last. If even one tank had remained mobile, the outcome might have shifted violently. He looked down the road at the burning silhouettes. 6 armored vehicles, once symbols of unstoppable momentum, were reduced to twisted steel and rising smoke. The image carried weight beyond personal survival. Each destroyed tank represented delayed movement, disrupted coordination, and shaken confidence within the attacking formation. German command elements faced a choice in that moment: commit additional armored units into a now suspected ambush zone, or halt the thrust entirely and reassess the sector. Momentus entral ter armored. Doctrine had been severed. A stalled advance before dawn risked daylight exposure under Allied artillery and air power. Small arms fire continued sporadically along the hedgerows, but it lacked cohesion. Without armored support, German infantry hesitated to press aggressively across open frost-covered fields. The crossroads, once vulnerable, now functioned as a defensive anchor strengthened by wreckage. The 18-year-old rose slightly within the ditch to survey damage. Smoke irritated his eyes. The cold returned to his awareness as adrenaline receded. Around him, squad members exchanged brief nods, silent recognition of what had occurred without indulgence. Before sunrise fully broke over the horizon, distant engine noise suggested withdrawal rather than reinforcement. The remaining German infantry began pulling back cautiously, dragging what equipment they could salvage. The shattered column had lost initiative. Artillery fire intensified deeper along the road, sealing the withdrawal route. The delay created by a single infantry position had altered the tempo of the local offensive. Reinforcements from neighboring Allied units began moving toward the crossroads, alerted by both radio and the visible glow of burning armor. As light spread across the frozen fields, the scale of destruction became clearer. The 6 Panzers lay at varying angles, some torn open violently, others blackened and still smoldering. What had been a mechanized spearhead hours earlier was now an obstacle field. The breaking point had not been a single explosion. It had been cumulative. Each successful strike narrowed the enemy's options until retreat became more rational than advance. Ammunition, depletion, exposure, and dawn had converged at precisely the moment the final tank was destroyed. The 18-year-old did not feel like a legend. He felt drained. His hands were raw from recoil and cold. His ears shrunk, yet he understood, even in exhaustion, that something significant had occurred. He had not merely defended a trench, he had prevented breakthrough. Higher Command would later analyze the engagement in reports. The numbers of vehicles destroyed, advance halted, sector stabilized. But at the breaking point before sunrise, those abstractions did not exist. There had only been calculation under fire. As daylight settled fully over the crossroads, the fires diminished and smoke thinned. Reinforcements secured the area. The 18-year-old stepped back from the road, leaving behind the wreckage that had defined the night. The armored assault had met resistance where at least expected it. Before dawn, 6 machines built for dominance had been reduced to silence by precision, patience, and resolve. The line held. When the sun fully cleared the horizon, the battlefield no longer felt immediate. The chaos of night had been replaced by stark clarity. 6 burned-out Panzers lined the narrow road, like monuments to interruption. Mechanics and recovery teams from the defending force arrived cautiously, inspecting the wreckage, counting impact points, confirming what had seemed impossible hours earlier. Reports began to move upward through command channels. Initial estimates verified 6 armored vehicles disabled or destroyed before dawn. The German thrust in that sector had halted. Reconnaissance later confirmed that the offensive timetable had shifted by crucial hours, forcing a reorganization farther to the rear. The crossroads, once marked for rapid seizure, had become a temporary defensive hinge. But beyond statistics lay interpretation. At the operational level, the engagement demonstrated a truth often overshadowed by large-scale maneuvers. Armored momentum depends on continuity. Break the lead element, compress the formation, and confusion multiplies. Armor without space to maneuver loses its decisive advantage. 6 tanks were not an entire division, but in a narrow corridor at night, they represented the spear tip. Shattering the tip blunted the thrust. For infantry doctrine, the engagement reinforced principles long taught but rarely executed under such extreme conditions. Concealment, angle selection, timing, and disciplined fire control proved more decisive than sheer numbers. The 18-year-old had not overpowered steel. He had exploited geometry and surprise. Word of the event spread quickly among nearby units. Some accounts exaggerated distance and scale, as battlefield stories often do. Others focused on the youth of the soldier, elevating the narrative into something approaching legend. An 18-year-old stopping 6 Panzers before sunrise fit naturally into the language of morale. Yet, myth simplifies what reality complicates. The success had depended not solely on bravery, but on terrain selection, disciplined training, and the column's constrained maneuver space. Remove any of those variables, and the outcome could have reversed sharply. Heroism existed, but it operated within structural conditions. The soldier himself returned to routine quickly. Equipment had to be checked, ammunition replenished. Defensive lines reinforced in anticipation of renewed assault. There was no ceremony in the hours following. War allowed little time for reflection. Higher headquarters later studied the engagement carefully. Analysts examined how armored formations could be disrupted in narrow terrain under low visibility conditions. They evaluated infantry, anti-tank, positioning, and response times. The incident informed tactical briefings and reinforced emphasis on flank exploitation and defensive planning. Strategically, the event contributed to a broader understanding. Armor projects dominance only when coordinated with infantry, reconnaissance, and flexible maneuver. Overconfidence in forward momentum creates vulnerability at choke points. The destroyed Panzers became case material for both sides. Memory, however, moved differently from doctrine. Among soldiers, the story carried emotional weight. It symbolized the fragile balance between overwhelming force and individual initiative. It demonstrated that preparation and resolve could momentarily equalize disparity in age, experience, and machinery. Years later, recollections would vary in tone, some measured, others reverent. But the essential contrast remained unchanged. Steel had represented systemic power. Youth had represented adaptive will. Neither alone defined the outcome. Their collision under specific conditions. The crossroads eventually returned to ordinary quiet once the front shifted. Wreckage was cleared. Tracks were repaired. Frost melted with changing seasons, yet the imprint of that pre-dawn battle lingered in reports, in memory, and in the doctrine shaped by its lessons. The 18-year-old did not set out to become a symbol. He had acted within a narrow window defined by calculation and necessity. Before sunrise, he had altered momentum. The enduring lesson was not that individuals defeat machines by courage alone. It was that systems contain weaknesses, and those who recognize them regardless of age can influence events far beyond their immediate position. In the frozen hours before dawn, an armored advance met resistance it did not anticipate. By daylight, the field held silent proof that momentum is never absolute, and sometimes history turns in the space between a single decision and the first light of morning.